Over half the creators on TikTok telling you to sync your cycle to your workouts never cite a single study. In fact, almost none of them have any credentials at all. And when researchers went back to the research and actually checked, they fell apart. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what they found, and if you're new here, this is the Science of the Ambitious Girl, where I break down the research so you don't have to, so you can subscribe down below if you want to stay updated. Last episode, I promised the truth of cycle syncing, and I'm starting with the piece that gets repeated the most, the training. Lift heavy in your follicular phase and take a step back on your luteal phase. Do yoga, maybe don't work out, just go on walks. And that is supposedly that's supposedly supposed to help you build muscle. You probably heard some version of this. So I have 4 research papers in front of me, and I'm gonna break down exactly what they said, including a research paper analyzing 100 TikToks and what creators said, credentials, etc. Here's a claim in its most common form. Your hormones make the follicular phase, making it easy to build muscle, lift heavy, whereas the 2 weeks before your period starts is the luteal phase, and that's where you should take a step back. And that's because your body supposedly can recover and build muscle like in your follicular phase. A study published this year actually looked at where this advice comes from. Researchers analyzed 100 TikToks under the hashtag cycle syncing. About a third of the creators listed any credentials at all, and more than half of them told the viewers to change their training based on their cycle. That doesn't mean the idea is automatically wrong. Ideas can start on TikTok and still be true, but it does mean that most of us absorb the fact without actually seeing the science behind it. So I went and found it. The cycle syncing advice traces back to actually a small number of studies, and one in particular gets cited constantly. Researchers took 20 women and trained one leg and compared it to the other leg. One leg was trained mostly in the follicular phase and the other leg was trained mostly in the luteal phase. And they used a leg press. They did it for 3 months. At the end, the follicular leg, the side that was trained on the follicular side, had more muscle than the one on the luteal leg. On the surface, it looks like solid proof. Real study, real measurement, statistically significant result. This is a study cycle syncing is built on. But here's the detail that actually matters. To know which leg was actually in which phase, the researchers had to know when a woman ovulated, and that's about mid-cycle, between the follicular phase and luteal phase, and when your body releases an egg. The method that they used to track this was basal body temperature. When you're ovulating, your BBT, basal body temperature, increases. That signals ovulation. And that detail is about to become a problem. In 2023, a team from McMaster University did something nobody had done yet. They pulled together every systemic study, review, meta-analysis on menstrual cycle phase and training, graded the quality of each one, and went back and analyzed what these studies on cycle syncing was based off of. What they found was rough and a hard truth. That body temperature method used to track ovulation, well, a separate study of 98 women found that temperature that actually lined up with real ovulation was only 22%, meaning it is not as accurate as we think it is. There's more. The training schedule assumed every participant had perfectly even symmetrical cycles, exactly enough days in one cycle to hit those sessions. The reviewers pointed out that that's statistically unlikely amongst 20 women with real cycle variation. And a second larger study, often cited, has its own issues as well. It never verified ovulation at all. It mixed women on birth control who weren't on it. And its actual difference was only 0.2 kilograms of lean muscle. And that was smaller than the margin of error of the scanner used to measure it. So what did the actual body of evidence show once quality was accounted for? 3 out of 5 major reviews found no effect on cycle syncing strength at all. And when researchers only look at the higher quality studies, 90% of them found no difference between phases. The researchers' conclusion, almost word per word, was, "It is premature to conclude that the cycle meaningfully affects your strength gains." Here's where it gets interesting, because this isn't totally a myth bust. There's a separate study that had 14 women train at 2 different intensities on their follicular and luteal phase. And the researchers measured compared their workout and how they felt. Physically, nothing changed. Heart rate, exertion at the muscular level, all consistent across phases. That lines up with everything we just covered. But psychologically, it was a different story. In the luteal phase, women reported more depression, more hostility, less vigor, and less motivation during exercises. And it got specifically during the high intensity exercises, where perceived effort was higher than it was during the follicular phase, even though the physical demand wasn't different. So your body isn't building muscle any differently than it would in either phase, but a hard workout can genuinely feel harder on your luteal phase than in your follicular phase. And that's not you being weak or unmotivated. That's a real measured psychological shift. So here's what I'd actually take away from these 4 papers. First, don't restructure your entire training to fit a format, thinking that you're going to get stronger or build more muscle. The evidence for those specific claims are weak, and some of the loudest studies have real issues with the design of their study. Second, if a high, heavy session felt intense or mentally harder right before your period / your luteal phase, that's real. It's not a lack of discipline, so plan for it. Maybe that's not the week where you plan out your max, not because your muscles can't do it, but because it's gonna feel worse doing it. Third, and this is the bigger point, the researchers behind this review said it plainly. Your training should be specifically built around you, your sleep, your schedule, your feelings, your motivation, whatever it is, you need to tailor your workouts, your training to yourself. Because I am different from you and you are different from her. It's not a generic 4-stage chart that you can just follow a blueprint, because you are not a blueprint. You are your own formula. Track how you actually feel instead of trying to follow a chart. I want to be honest, when I started researching this episode, I expected to find clear evidence for training around your cycle, because it's everywhere and it sounds so intuitive, right? Finding out that actual research was shaky. It's not what I would expect either. That doesn't mean tracking your cycle is pointless. It means that specifically lifting heavy at a certain time is not as backed up by science as we thought it to be. So create evidence for yourself when you feel great, when you don't feel that great. If this changed how you think about your training, subscribe, because it genuinely helps me more than you know. And drop a comment if you tried cycle syncing, and I want to know if you actually felt a difference. And next week, I'll be breaking down the body fat percentage myth that no one talks about. So I'll see you next week. Bye for now.